Hello everyone, this is Mine and Shade, and I welcome you to my fourth session of my series Podcasts on Science and Rationality. Over the last years, the debate between scientists and religious apologetics has, for a great part, consisted in accusing one another of being deluded. Now, of course, everyone can be deluded in the sense of being mistaken with respect to some other aspect. There is, to be sure, a difference between being deluded and deluding oneself. The latter, for its most part, takes place when someone has discovered an unpleasant truth. Unpleasant, that is, because it contradicts what he believes in, or better, wants to believe in, what he wishes to be true. In many cases, this in turn is preceded by the former, that is, someone who deludes himself has been deluded by others before. The situation gets more complicated by adding that these people themselves often have been deluded by others in their turn. Such is the tradition of religion, such is the tradition of esoterica. Human nature appears to be vulnerable in two ways. The one is that we, as individuals as well as groups, often depend on other individuals or groups concerning our information about the world we live in. We have just considered this aspect, and it is no news that the beliefs we most stubbornly hold onto are those we adopted as children, for then we needed to believe what elder conspecifics, such as our parents, our grandparents, or other relatives, and even non-relatives, told us in order to survive. This kind of behavior turns out as giving advantage to those who adopted it in regard of survival. For this reason, we tend to unreasonably hold onto those beliefs, even though straight evidence may prove them totally false. Thus, since in these days we know about this, there applies an even greater responsibility to us concerning what we have our children believe and what we teach them to do with incoming information. We must not make them believe anything on mere assertions by any seeming authority, that is, just because someone says something is thus and so, it need not be so necessarily. Instead, we need to instruct them to check the available evidence for any proposition carefully, and that no argument ad hominem is proper. This is the negative variant of teaching that, just because someone says something is thus and so, it need not be so necessarily. The other point is this. Human beings often refuse to concede that they have been wrong. Many people even tend to get angry and aggressive when one proves them wrong, although, and this is where I wanted to get, it is no shame to admit that one has been wrong or that one has changed one's mind. In fact, personally, I have changed my mind on almost everything I once believed over the last 8 years. Throughout my childhood and when I was a teenager, I was a very religious person. Notwithstanding that my parents did not raise me fundamentally, I became more and more religious through the years, even more religious than my parents themselves. I reached the peak of my religious thinking when I imagined, I was almost sure, that nearly everyone I knew, including my parents and friends, would go to hell on the day of judgment save me, albeit they believed in God too. I was so sure because I tried to live according to the Lord's law, whereas others seemed to me to not care at all. Thus, their fate was sealed, or so I thought. Owing to my former religious life, I thoroughly know the inner perspective of being religious. When you are religious, you tend to read holy scriptures as you would like them to be. That is, you do not wonder whether there are any contradictions in it. You just ignore these verses, and you do so often unconsciously. The first time I was confronted with atheism was when in religious classes a classmate wrote, "There is no God," on a paper. I was totally shocked, for I had not expected anyone to not believe in God. So I asked him whether he were aware of what he was saying. He coolly responded by a simple yes. Be that as it may, it took me several more months to begin to analyze Holy Scripture rationally and to detect the contradictions as well as the evidence against the monotheistic God. Needless to say, one cannot simply choose what to believe. Either you believe something or you don't. Thus, it takes a lot of time to convince oneself of something. I decided to give up on praying. Instead, I would begin to live my life by my own lights. I still was vulnerable, for it is a hard transmutation from an almost fundamental theist to a free-thinking atheist. What I realized though was that if you do not believe in any deity or any other metaphysical being like demons or angels, you get rid of a whole bundle of fear. Yes, religion, as I then saw, is a burden for the human mind and the human heart. Let me hasten to say that only because I ceased to believe in a metaphysical being always watching me and knowing every single thing I do, I did not start to behave rude, cruel, and moralless. I was lucky that my parents, albeit themselves religious, did not teach me what is right and what is wrong in connection to religion. So what I do and what I do not is judged by my conscience, independent of my belief in any deity. I do not harm people or animals without need. That is, I would harm them if they attacked me first in self-defense, of course, yet I do not attack anyone or anything first. In my view, murder and rapture are the worst crimes in the world, and I do not understand why rapture is punished so mildly in many countries. Rapture destroys lives as murder and manslaughter do, for if someone rapes a woman or a child, he does not only damage their body, but also their minds and hearts. So how come they get away with it so easily? In my view, they deserve a lifelong prison sentence. Every woman has the right to decide with whom to have sex, with whom to fall in love, with whom to start a relationship, and whom to marry. It is simply wrong, morally wrong, to force a determinate fate on someone just for the reason that one has the power to do so. This is, besides other reasons, why I reject Holy Scriptures, since many verses approve of raping women, even young girls, force them to marry their rapers, or put everyone who resists to the sword and the fire. Why is this wrong? Simply because it harms human beings without any necessity to do so. This is a sufficient reason to stay away from these things. I do not need any God to tell me so. To get back to my actual point, I freely confess that I was wrong in the past about many things. I was wrong about religion, I was wrong about nature, that is the natural world, I was wrong about people, I was wrong about the internet, I was wrong about emotions, I was wrong about cognitions, and I was wrong about a plethora of other things either. So what? I changed my mind, and I'm sure I shall do so many a time in years to come. I do not feel ashamed, but I am proud to have cleared some hurdles. Thank you very much for listening.